families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Families Divided. This week, we are honored to have with us attorney Ashish Joshi. He's going to speak with us about being wrongfully accused of alienation in court. He will join us for his presentation right after these messages.
At Victor's Crown, our focus is on you, our clients. When you arrive, our goal is that you will feel at home, from our welcoming atmosphere to our serene surroundings. Everything we do at Victor's Crown is done with our clients in mind. We have comfortable seating areas for both adults and children. A large screen TV with surround sound where clients can be occupied with wholesome entertainment while they wait. We offer complimentary refreshments such as coffee, tea, water, and snacks. Due to the present COVID pandemic, our in-person appointments are restricted to selected cases, and those are held in our luxurious outdoor open-air meeting space that we affectionately refer to as the COVID Cabana, which was built specifically for our clients to offer them the most comfortable and relaxing outdoor space available. All our other clients are offered secured web-based telemed sessions where they can connect with us from anywhere in the world.
Welcome to the show. My name is Ashish Joshi. I'm an attorney in Michigan. I'm based out of Ann Arbor, and I specialize in representing parents, grandparents, and children in family courts. My practice is nationwide in scope, and I also represent cases internationally as well. We are going to talk today about parental alienation. And one of the key things to remember is that there are parents, there are mothers, fathers, grandpa, grandma, who are falsely accused of parental alienation. And when that happens, it's a very painful thing to go through, because nothing is worse than being falsely accused of something that you didn't do. And in a case of parental alienation, it means that you are being accused falsely of committing child psychological abuse. So before we go into how to defend yourself against allegations of parental abuse, accusations, and parental alienation, which are made falsely, let's talk a little bit about what is parental alienation as understood by family courts. Typically, a case of parental alienation involves a child who is rejecting a parent or resisting a relationship with a parent for non-legitimate reasons. In other words, there are no good reasons for the child to reject that parent. The parent is not abusive. The parent has not demonstrated any significantly deficient parenting. The parent has not been neglectful. In other words, the child is rejecting perfectly good perfectly decent parent for no good reason. But that is not enough. You also need proof of alienating behaviors by the favored parent. You need some evidence that the favored parent has encouraged the child to reject the targeted parent or the rejected parent, because there are no assumptions here. Some detractors like to claim that the theory of parental alienation is just unscientific or bogus because it makes all sorts of assumptions. That just because you have evidence of a child rejecting a parent, that means that the favored parent must have done something to turn the child against the other parent. And that is categorically false. The proponents of the theory of parental alienation make no such assumptions. In fact, one of the ways to prove parental alienation in a court of law is to use the five-factor model, which has been proposed by experts such as Dr. Amy Baker, Dr. William Burnett, and others. And one of the factors of the five-factor model requires absence of abuse, absence of neglect, and absence of significantly deficient parenting. So no assumptions there. But what happens when someone is falsely accused of parental alienation? How does it come across? How does that happen? Well, there are several ways it can happen. First of all, it is not uncommon for the alienating parent to accuse the other parent of alienation. In other words, alienators often engage in distortion of reality, distortion of truth, which is also sometimes called gaslighting. The alienating parent accuses the other parent of doing precisely what the alienating parent is doing. So they would make false accusation. They would file papers in the courts accusing the other parent of falsely alienating the child. They would encourage the child to reject the other parent. They would violate the healthy boundaries between the parent and the child. They would cause to reach out to friends, family members, and others and play the card of the victim. In other words, what they are doing constitute alienating behaviors, but they are accusing the other parent of doing that to them. So that is one way how false allegations of alienation are made in a court of law. And sometimes they are made by parents who are themselves alienating the children against the other parent. In other situations, you might have a case of a parent who has been genuinely abusive. You might have a case where a parent has been found to have engaged in physical abuse, for example, where there is a full-blown investigation by protective services, and the parent who is being rejected by the child, the parent who is being resisted by the child, has been found to have engaged in abusive behavior. You might have a case where a parent who has been neglectful for a significant part of the child's life, where a parent who has never been around while the child was growing up, the parent who never made it to any of their soccer games, any of birthday parties, any vacations, who was never around when the child needed that parent. And all of a sudden, during divorce or separation, that parent wants to be the part of the child's life. Well, it's commendable that the parent is now trying, but that doesn't mean that the child is going to have the same sort of close, loving relationship that the child has with the other parent who has been around the entirety of the child's life. And it's possible that the child may be resistant initially to that parent who was neglectful. And that's a legitimate reason. A yet another situation could be where the parent who is being resisted has some significant issues, such as alcoholism, mental disorders, personality disorders. If there is a genuine reason by which a child is resisting contact with a parent, then it's not a case of parental alienation. There are various reasons how children align themselves with one parent or seem closer to one parent against the other parent, or just a family dysfunction. Sometimes it happens in the high conflict divorce cases. Sometimes it happens when the child is naturally aligned with one parent because of a pre-existing close bond. A father and son, for example, could share a lot more activities and interests together, skiing, fishing, camping, for example, than the son and the mother, or vice versa. And if a child wants to spend more time with a favored parent with whom the child has a genuine bond of affection and a close relationship, then that in and of itself is not alienation. Alienation takes place when you have evidence of the favored parent deliberately taking actions or doing something to sabotage the relationship of the child and the other parent. You have evidence of repeated bad mouthing, for example, repeated interference of parenting time with the targeted parent and the child, orchestrating false allegations of abuse, causing the police and the protective services workers to show up at the door to do well-checked visits or some other pretext. That's what alienation cases involve, not some situational episodic instances, but you have a pattern of behavior over a considerate period of time. In contrast, false allegations of parental alienation usually doesn't have that evidence. On the contrary, sometimes you see that the parent who's being falsely accused of parental alienation has been genuinely trying to facilitate a relationship between the child and the other parent. You see the parent who is being falsely accused of being protective of the child against the other parent who has been genuinely abusive. You see evidence of police interventions. You sometimes have evidence of prosecution for domestic violence or child abuse, guilty pleas, and the parent who has been found to have engaged in that abusive conduct refusing to take responsibility, refusing to go to therapy, refusing to get help that he or she needs, and rather blaming it on the other parent and calling it alienation. And that's a misuse of the term parental alienation. That is not what parental alienation is. So if you happen to be accused falsely of parental alienation, what should you do? What can you do? For starters, you need to gather evidence of why. Why is the child rejecting the other parent? Is the other parent abusive? Show the court the evidence of that. If there have been protective services investigations where the other parent has been found to have engaged in abusive conduct, gather that evidence, bring it to your lawyer, bring it to the court's attention. If the other parent has behaved horribly in the past, if there has been evidence of significantly deficient parenting, bring it to the court's evidence, to the court's notice. Collect witnesses, gather documentary evidence. If there is medical evidence of a personality disorder or some sort of other psychiatric history of the other parent, and there's a reason why the child might be genuinely afraid of the other parent, bring it to the court's notice. What you are trying to show is that you are not interfering in the other parent's relationship with the child. What you are trying to do is to protect the child and making sure that the child enjoys a healthy and a safe relationship with the other parent. And when you're engaging in protective parenting, you need to have the evidence to support your actions. You need to be able to show what is the reason behind the child's resistance to the other parent. You can also show a lack of involvement of the other parent. If the parent who is accusing you of alienation was neglectful, was never around when the child was growing up, was never present for any of the parent-teacher conferences, was never present for family vacations, was never present for any sport activities, was never present for any of the family time, and there never was a close bond between the child and that parent until the divorce or separation, you need to present that evidence to the court. You need to show that it's not you who are interfering with the relationship between the parent and the other child. It's either the lack of a bond or relationship between the parent who is accusing you and the child, or there are genuinely legitimate reasons as to why the child is rejecting that parent. Alienation often involves gaslighting and false accusations, and it's important to go through this allegations and collect evidence, not speculation, not assumptions, but real evidence that can consist of witnesses, that can consist of emails, that can consist of your efforts to encourage a relationship between the child and the other parent. For example, when going through false allegations of alienation, sometimes the courts and evaluators find that the parent who is being accused of alienation, in fact, was trying to encourage a relationship. In fact, that parent was telling the child to call the other parent. That parent was encouraging the child to go out and buy and get cards for the father or mother during the Father's Day or Mother's Day, for example. That parent was trying to facilitate a phone call, a video call, having lunches, having dinners. And it's actually the parent who is making the accusations at fault for not responding, for not behaving appropriately, for continuing to engage in the path of litigation or hostility or rejecting the child's overtures, for example, or behaving in a fashion that is entirely age inappropriate, given the child's age and the relationship that existed at that point in time. So there are a lot of ways you can defend yourself if you are being falsely accused of alienation. But what you should not be doing, in my opinion, is to challenge the theory of parental alienation. People sometimes make the mistake of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's a mistake to just say that there's no such thing as parental alienation, that the whole theory is a hoax, or it has no scientific underpinning, and that's swinging the pendulum too far. If you are being falsely accused, the problem is not the theory of parental alienation. The problem is the lack of evidence, the lack of support. Like any other theory or like any other phenomenon, the theory of parental alienation can be misused on occasions. There can be misunderstanding of a parent's behaviors, a parent's action. There could be legitimate reasons why a parent is not facilitating a relationship between the child and the other parent. There could be reasons why a parent or the child are genuinely fearful of the other parent, and you need to show that. You need to bring that evidence to your lawyer. You need to bring it to the court's attention. And it's not impossible to defend against false allegations. People do it all the time. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes effort, but done the right way, you can persuade a judge or a jury in your jurisdiction that you are not guilty of parental alienation. And what you are doing, in fact, is to protect the child from the other parent who has been abusive in the past or neglectful or has some significant mental health issues. Thank you for listening. In case of any other questions, please go to my website, www.joshiattorneys, JOSHIATTORNEYS.com. There are a lot of resources on the website, a lot of publications, videos, and blogs on parental alienation, domestic violence, and family courts. And feel free to use the website and the resources. Thank you.
Thanks to Ashish Joshi for being with us this week on Families Divided. We also asked him to give us some guidance in finding the right attorney for your particular case. He will share those tips with us coming up in just a moment.
In families dealing with alienation, communication during conflict is often very difficult. This fall, Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, will present a special in-person conference to address that very issue. Using and Refining Interpersonal Skills will be held September 9th through the 11th at the Marriott Research Triangle Park in Durham, North Carolina. You'll learn from experts how to master skills that can reduce anxiety, anger, and stress in alienation situations. Join Event Director Elaine Cobb, the founder and president of Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights, and conference moderator Dr. Colleen Murray as they present a lineup of highly respected experts, including keynote speaker Dr. Jeffrey Gardier, plus presentations by Bill Eddy, Megan Hunter, Dr. Joshua Coleman, Dr. Mark Mosk, Dr. Mary Alvarez, Dr. Sue Kornbluth, Shazia Sparkman, and Lisa Rothfuss. Mark your calendar now, September 9th through the 11th, for Using and Refining Interpersonal Skills, hosted by Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights, Steel Partners Foundation, and PASCA, Parental Alienation is Child Abuse. Visit familyaccess.info for more details on the conference and secure your attendance. Seating is limited. Often, dealing with the issue of parental alienation can seem like trying to untangle the biggest rope in the world. You don't have to untangle parental alienation alone. The XO Foundation offers help through empowerment, equity, and education. Find out how the XO Foundation can help you by visiting thexofoundation.org.
Hello, my name is Ashish Joshi. I'm with Joshi Attorneys and Counselors out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I specialize in litigating cases involving parental alienation around the country. And frequently I'm asked by targeted parents who have had a series of experiences with lawyers, with judges, with court-appointed professionals, and have got nowhere. And the question is, how do we find a lawyer to present a case of parental alienation in a court of law? And there are several ways to go about it. Like searching for any good professional, you need to do your due diligence. So when you are meeting with a prospective lawyer, ask the lawyer who's going to do the work. Is the lawyer going to work on the case himself or herself, or are any associates going to be involved? Is there a junior partner? Who is going to work on your case? You need to know that. Second, ask the lawyer about the difference between a case of parental alienation and a high conflict case. There is a difference between high conflict, custody or divorce case, and a case of parental alienation. And it's absolutely critical to not only know the difference, but to make sure that you present the case in the right way before the court. If the case is presented as a high conflict case, the assumption is that each party, each parent, shares the blame in the family dysfunction. And that could have a completely different trajectory for the parental alienation case. Find out, is the lawyer up to date on the recent research, professional literature on parental alienation. Ask about the top 5 articles, peer-reviewed, that have come through in the past 5 years on alienation. Ask the lawyers about top decisions in your jurisdiction or in other jurisdictions that pertain to parental alienation.
To see more videos and articles from today's guest, visit familyaccess.info. Next week on Families Divided, Dr. Colleen Murray interviews a legal panel consisting of attorneys Shazia Sparkman and Michael Hiller on the topic, Something is Wrong in the Courtroom. Can the Court be Healing? To make a tax-deductible contribution to Family Access, fighting for children's rights, visit familyaccess.info. If you'd like to request prayer for your family, please send an email to prayersforfamilies@gmail.com. Miss an episode of Families Divided? Watch previous episodes and more on our YouTube channel, Families Divided TV.